Then on May 27th, the Pentecost sermons of that year of 2012 kind of got things going. Then we had the general chapter in July. After the general chapter, when we read the general chapter statement, coupled with the 6 conditions that were attached to it, it was clear that there was a new theology of the society. And one of the things that made 2012 very easy for us is that it was so abundantly clear. There was no confusion in the documents. It was very clear the July 14, 2012 statement was a compromise of faith. And then this was especially when it says that Vatican II remains tainted with errors, which means there are no errors in the council. And I remember arguing with Father Couture, my superior, about that particular word, tainted, for 45 minutes. And he was never able to just give me a different explanation or a different interpretation of the word tainted. The word tainted does not mean tainted, but real, present of the error. Because if you're tainted with errors, it's like the taint of original sin remains. The taint of original sin remains after baptism. There's no taint of original sin before baptism. Before baptism, you're in original sin. After baptism, the original sin is gone, but the taint or the stain remains. The inclination to evil, the weaknesses, the wounds remain. But the original sin is gone. And so it's like the bullet's been removed, but there's still some scars. The bullet's not there anymore. And so when you say that the Vatican II is tainted with error, it means it doesn't have error. And when 40 priests accepted that, those 40 priests were guilty. You should never have tolerated such a clearly liberal statement. And they said, no, it wasn't liberal, it was only confused. And they said, well, that's the essence of modernism. Modernism speaks in confused language. It's modernist. And then the 6 conditions made it even worse, made it even more clear. The first condition was a compromise of faith against the first commandment. And then the one that most people were upset about was the second wishable condition, or desirable condition, which was that we would rather not be under a local bishop, which means that we accept to be under the direction and care of a local bishop. And that means handing the sheep over to the wolves to be destroyed. And no Catholic priest who has the care of souls can tolerate that. Better to die than tolerate such a thing. So it became very clear. We stood up. And then we had a meeting of priests August 10th, August 8th or 7th through the 10th in Washington, D.C. with Father Ringrose. The place where Father Ortiz is now. Father Ortiz wasn't there at that time. Father Ortiz was still in the society in France, accepting his exile at that point. He wasn't yet with us. And then, so that there were about 30 priests that were going to come to this meeting. And then it became 25, 20, 15, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And it was eventually only 5 priests that came to the meeting. And 2 of them were myself and Father Giselle and Father Hugo and then Father Ringrose himself, of course, and another priest helps us, Father Voigt. And so we met, and then there was an election of a superior. I was elected the superior, and we began to work as a Marian corps of priests. Small corps of priests to work to spread the faith. And Father Hugo went away for a few months to decide whether or not he wanted to go or continue with us. And so there was 2 of us then. Father Voigt stayed in Kentucky for a short time, stayed in Kentucky for a little while. Father Ringrose, of course, remained in his parish doing as he has always done. So it ended up being 2 of us. And we began our first Mass. Father Giselle I went around America briefly. Father Giselle went to France to speak to the priests in France and to meet with Bishop Fillet, which he did. And at the conclusion of his meeting with Bishop Fillet wasn't very happy, but he had to admit some things, some true what Father Giselle had to say. But at the very end of the meeting, Father Giselle said, Your Excellency, we will take all the priests that you send us. And he's been sending us priests ever since that day. And so the priests are still being sent. Father Pfluger prophesied that the sending would continue in January of this year when he said there's going to be a continuing purgation of priests. The society is being purged of unwanted priests and unwanted troublemakers who don't have the right spirit. And the purging will continue. So it's like my brother's t-shirt. The beatings will continue until attitude improves. And so the beatings will continue until the attitude improves. And so they're not going to stop the beatings, not going to stop the condemnations. We went to the Philippines, our priory, where we were our headquarters, and our headquarters Singapore. We went to the Philippines, Manila. We went there in September of 2012, and we're forbidden to say Mass even privately on side altars, even at 3 o'clock in the morning. We asked Father Couture, our superior, can you at least allow us to say Mass privately at 3 o'clock in the morning? Nobody's going to be there, except for a couple of mosquitoes. Let us say Mass on the side altars at 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, no, you cannot say Mass even on the side altars, even at 3 o'clock in the morning. You cannot say the Mass even privately on the side altars. We're forbidden. And so Father Giselle said Mass in the streets. I would say Mass in my room with a Mass kit. We both had Mass kits because otherwise we would not have been able to say Mass. They locked the sacristy, didn't allow us to take the chalices and so on. But of course, once they said we couldn't say Mass, we weren't going to go in and do otherwise. But Father Onoda, to be on the safe side, to make sure we didn't go in, because remember we're priests there, we have the keys. So they changed the locks in the sacristy, just in case we might try to go in and get some chalices and set up and say Mass. So we said Mass in the streets. And on that Sunday, September the 16th, we had the first public Sunday Mass, so to speak, of the Resistance. 2 Masses with 1 faithful. And the 1 faithful was my secretary, Adette Ferenco. And we had she was at both Masses, and so Father Hugh Giselle said the first Mass, and I served his Mass, and he said the second Mass, and he served my Mass. And we said Mass in the streets, right in front of the church at the time of the High Mass on Sunday. And one of the faithful that walked by that day now built a priory for Father Giselle. We had never spoken to her before that day. She knew who I was and knew Father Giselle a little bit, but we did not know them because we never said Mass in Manila. Our territory was outside of Manila. Our territory was elsewhere. We would be based there, but not say the Masses there. So we didn't know the people of the Manila parish. But one of the faithful who walked by that day said, you know, I've got a little chapel in my house. The priest shouldn't have to say Mass in the streets. And so we got one of her friends that she knew, that used to be one of my parishioners who knew me, now in the southern part of the Philippines, would contact me and try to find contacts. He would tell Father Pfeiffer that he and Father Giselle can say Mass at my house tomorrow. So it took him a while. He finally got a hold of me, and then we went over and said Mass at her house the next day. And now that's the place, just south of there is where the seminary is. He built, we call it the Taj Shazal. Was built south, the magnificently beautiful place with wood carvings, and it's disgusting. Our place in Kentucky is a dive. Father Giselle's place in the Philippines is magnificent. And but in any case, but she built it, and we have our place there. Now, we started with 2 priests and 1 faithful, and then we just simply went around, first of all, our territory, the Philippines, and traveled together. Then we went to America, traveled around together. And then Father went back to the Philippines, and then I stayed in the United States the majority of the time. And from both places, priests started to slowly come to join us. Father Hugo came back to join us again. Father Voigt came down, and then other priests tried to help out at different times in different places. And priests slowly came more and more into this movement of the resistance against modernism. And now we have more than 2,000 to 3,000 faithful throughout the world. And we say Mass at about 70 different locations, Father Giselle and myself, and the priests that help us. And there's another 30 or so locations where they say Mass in South America, under the protection of Father Thomas Aquinas, the monastery there in Brazil, and also Father Jahir, another monastery in Brazil, and Father Cardozo is the principal society priest who goes around to all those places saying Mass, and Father Trincado, and now Father Altamira, and other priests are joining to help the spreading of the word in South America, in the Spanish-speaking world in South America, Central America, and Mexico. And so they were being well taken care of. Meanwhile, priests, the faithful, continue to call us. I just got a call last week. I got a call from Poland, from Switzerland, and of course, recently from Africa, from Gabon, and also from Kenya. And so that the people are calling and saying, Father, can you please come? Can you please send priests? We want to have one of your priests come and say Mass. We went to say Mass in England, also in Scotland, and in Ireland, where we have places now, and Hanover, Germany, and so on. And so that some of the local priests have not yet taken over some of those places, most of those places. We're hoping local priests can come and slowly take over these places. But Providence has arranged that somehow we continue to grow. against all adversities. We're just looking at the orbits, at the airplane tickets. We're trying to fulfill all our plane tickets. And in the course of this last year and a half, I purchased more than 450 airplane tickets. And so tickets going everywhere. Most of the tickets for myself and for Father Hugo, and a few for Father Giselle. This doesn't count Father Giselle and all of his tickets and all the travel he's doing. It does not count. Including them, we're going to be over 1,000 tickets in the course of a year and a half. And of course, one of the things that Father Couture pointed out in the very beginning, he told the people in the Philippines, why are you following Father Giselle and Father Pfeiffer? Why are you following them? Because they were the priests here and so on. But you should not follow them because they have to go back. Father Giselle's got to go back to France. Father Pfeiffer's got to go back to America. It's very expensive plane tickets to fly back and forth. They're not going to be able to come back. They're not going to be able to give you the Mass. So you're going to be following and supporting them, and they're not going to be able to come back. Well, we've come back, and we've come back, and we've come back, and we've come back. One example, for instance, it was Father Thomas Aquinas and Father Jahir and others in South America, even though they're being taken care of, really wanted us to come and visit. So Father Hugo and I were going to come and visit Brazil and also visit Ecuador. And then later on we went to visit Mexico and to see our friends down there and to meet with them. But the problem is the trip would cost over about $10,000. And had a total of about $500 or $1,000 in the bank. So the trip was scheduled, but we couldn't make the trip. Someone wrote a check for $10,000, just made an out-of-the-blue donation of $10,000 for no particular reason, one check for $10,000, no particular reason, right before the time to buy, the last minute to buy the tickets. We made the trip, didn't have to cancel anything. It was the only trip where we said, well, I guess we're going to have to maybe not be able to go. But so far, no masses have had to be canceled. And we always are running low, but we continue to go from place to place, able to celebrate the Mass. And God is providing, and Our Lady is providing. And so we continue to go. And we still have the same stability we had a year and a half ago, which is none. We still don't have any properties. We still don't have any stability. We live in our suitcases and so on. And yet, we continue to go. The faithful continue to provide. And we have started a seminary in Kentucky and also a little seminary in the Philippines. And then also Father Cardozo is beginning to train pre-seminarians down in South America. And so that we have the beginnings of future priests. There must be future priests. Because no matter how young we are, recent surveys have shown that priests are mortal. And that they're all going to die. And when the priest dies, there need to be young priests to take their place. And so therefore, and God will decide when the world's going to come to an end. He's got that schedule and He hasn't given it to us. So therefore, we have to continue. We have to continue. And when the day of the world's ending comes, we need to be found working in the Lord's vineyard. And it doesn't matter then what day He decides for it to come. And then of course, there have been many conferences. You've had the Father Thiemann talk, which I guess has been spread all over the Philippines. Father Giselle expresses great gratitude to Father Thiemann. Father Thiemann is a priest who's been responsible for helping us get at least 200 to 300 more souls within the resistance. So he's been very helpful because his talk against the resistance exposed the liberalism within the society, exposed the modernism within the society, and exposed the weakness of the new society's position. And so Father Thiemann was a great boon to the resistance. His sister comes to our Mass sometimes, and I told her, make sure you tell Father that we're grateful. And we're very grateful for his talk. One of our guys in the Philippines who was not always waffling back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like a windmill, he read Father Thiemann's talk, and now he's confirmed. And now he's 100% with us, no more like a windmill. So we're grateful to Father Thiemann. And because the thing is, we stand upon the truth. Truth is what we stand on. And our strength is only in that. And the Society of St. Pius X, for the last 40 years, has only been able to stand because it stands on the truth. One thing about the Society of Priests in general is that we're all pretty much incompetent. And that's something that's been the case since the beginning. We take a class in the seminary called Good Decision Making. If you pass the course, you're expelled. You have to be a moron. You have to make stupid decisions. You have to be an idiot or you can't get ordained in the traditional SSPX. You've seen all the young priests in the society over the last 40 years. And yet somehow the society has continued to grow. Somehow it's continued to remain stable. Why? Because the stability and strength of the society in Pius X is not in its priests. It's in its faith. And that's what's needed for our times. We don't need perfect souls in these times, though we must always pray for them. We need souls of faith, even if they are weak. This is a time in which the faith is being very strongly assaulted on all sides. And there are many good men, spiritual men, who are falling for the liberalism. And these are not going to be blessed by God, except minimally in themselves because of their good intentions. But they shall not be blessed by God in their work. God blesses the work of the true faith. The work that's the work that's going to be blessed. And so so God blesses the work of the true faith. That's the work that is going to be blessed. And so that we must continue that work. And so far, there is still the blessings of God. There are many difficulties. There are some sorrows. There are some worries. There are concerns. There are wounded souls we have to deal with and mistakes that we continue to make. But so long as we stand for the truth and try to live in the sacredness of the divine charity, God will continue to bless the work. And we must remember also that the situation in the church will continue to get worse until heaven is obeyed. Heaven has not yet been obeyed. We have 8 popes that have disobeyed the Blessed Virgin Mary. Pius XI, Pius XII, John the 23rd, Pope John Paul the First, John for a few days, only had a short period of time to disobey. John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and now Pope Francis, who doesn't even know that he's Pope. And so these popes have all disobeyed heaven. And each one of them knew that the Blessed Virgin Mary speaks the truth. Even Pope Francis, when he visited Fatima. Every one of them called themselves, one way or another, the Pope of Fatima. And every single one of them disobeyed Fatima. It would be understandable if they said, Fatima is a hoax, therefore I'm not listening to Mary. But all these popes said, Fatima is real, and I'm still not listening to Mary. And so it's a great mystery. And Our Lady did say the consecration will come, but late. But until that day, things must get worse. And one of the grave errors of Bishop Foullée and the new societies in Pius X is the disagreement with the Blessed Virgin Mary. The Blessed Virgin assures us things will get worse until she is obeyed. But Pope Bishop Foullée and his followers believe things will slowly get better. And then will come the victory. Like taking pills to overcome cancer, like natural medicine. You're sick, you're really sick, and then you're less sick, and then you're a little bit better, then you can walk around, and then you can go out in public once in a while. Next thing you know, you're finally, after 400 years, healthy. But Our Lady has said, this is not the way that the health will return to the church in this crisis. It will be an immediate return. It will be a miraculous return. It will be by the power of heaven. And it will be at the moment that things are the worst. So one thing we can know with certainty, if things are truly getting better, then we are getting further away from the victory of Mary. The only way in which we can know that we are getting closer to her victory is that things are getting worse. Then we know we're getting closer to her victory. Because that's what heaven prophesied. And it is a great attack against the Blessed Virgin that the priests of the Society of St. Pius X and many modern traditional priests who say the Latin Mass do not speak of Fatima and do not believe fully in Fatima anymore. It's only a private revelation and so on. This is one of the errors. And then, of course, there's this false marriage. The false marriage. The priests of the society and the new Society of St. Pius X want to have a marriage with modernist Rome. They want to have a marriage with false philosophy, as what St. Pius X calls it, besending. paragraph 40 and 41 of Pascendi. He speaks about the errors, the causes of the grave heresy of modernism. And the last thing that he mentions is the intellectual cause. The first cause is ignorance, intellectual cause. And the second intellectual cause is a false marriage between the faith and false philosophies. And this is the marriage that Rome is asking for the Bishop Fillet. Let's have a union. Let's sign a contract. Let's make a deal. And in this contract, in this marriage, we will be united with you, and then it'll be like a real marriage in which the wife, for the next 50 years, tortures the husband. And the husband, for the next 50 years, is tortured by the wife. Tortures the wife. And so what happens is that's marriage. And we want to have a marriage. The woman, when she goes into the marriage, she marries the most worthless guy in the world and says, I'm going to change him. And that's why she wants to marry him, in order to change him. And Bishop Fillet wants to marry the Pope. He wants to marry the church in order to change it. I'm going to marry the modernist church, and I'm going to change it. You don't understand. You don't know the modernist church like I do. Isn't much different than a young girl wanting to marry a guy who just got off parole. There isn't much difference. And St. Pius X speaks of it. Now this false marriage they've been trying to have for the last several years, at least since 2001, when it was visibly spoken of for the first time in a public manner by Bishop Fillet and his followers. Now in 2012, we've been mentioning this in each place in the last few weeks. 3 different priests called me up in the last few weeks. I don't follow these things. I don't pay attention to the internet. I don't follow that stuff on the internet. We're busy running around dealing with souls. The internet I don't really like or care for. Nonetheless, it's a tool that can be used by God in our times. But I don't follow it. However, several priests told me in the last few weeks. One of them called me up and said that he was ordained in Rome, and conditionally be ordained within the Society of St. Pius X as one of the friends of the society, and now he works strongly with the resistance. And one of these priests called me up and said he has an Italian priest friend in the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Clergy. And this Italian priest friend called him up in the last few weeks. And he said at the end of January, at the very beginning of February, there was a really fat priest from the Society of St. Pius X who came to the Congregation for the Clergy, and there were 4 long meetings in 3 days about the union with Rome. And in that meeting with the Congregation for the Clergy, they were discussing the practical details of the practical status of the society after the union with Rome. And the scuttlebutt in the Congregation for the Clergy was the union should happen before August 2014. The fat priest was Father Ramon Angles, who was originally a priest in St. Mary's, Kansas for many years in the Society of St. Pius X. He's now stationed in Dublin, and he was also seen by the Irish ladies tell me he was gone from Ireland at that time at the end of January, and he was seen also walking around the streets of London, streets of Rome at the end of January as well. And that he's the fat priest who is one who represents the Society of St. Pius X in the dealings with Rome. He was at the general chapter, though he shouldn't have been at the general chapter in 2012. He's not one of the top 40 priests of the Society of St. Pius X, but Bishop Fillet allowed him to be at the general chapter as the canon lawyer advisor. And of course, there's no such thing, and he doesn't have a doctorate in canon law, which we can't get one in the society anyway, but he was the canon law advisor. That was his official capacity in the general chapter of 2012, and he shouldn't have been there. So Father Angles is that priest, and that they talked of this deal with Rome. Father Pfluger said to some French priests and also to some German priests. I got another report yesterday from a German priest repeating the same thing that was told to me by a Belgian priest, and that is that Father Pfluger told some priests in Germany as well as in France that the deal with Rome will be completed before the end of this year, 2014. Another priest called me from another priest, another friend outside of our little group. He called me and said that he was noticed these signs as well, and that he was reading the National Catholic Register of the United States, February of 2014, 14, just a few weeks or a month ago, in which it said, now is the time for the society to be accepted by Rome. And it gave some reasons. It says, in the time of Pope Benedict, it was not the time for the society to be received by Rome. Because at the time of Pope Benedict, the Benedict was a little bit too conservative. He had conservative elements. And people could perceive that the society was joining Rome only because of the conservative side of Pope Benedict, and not because of the whole Pope Benedict. Whereas, in the case of Pope Francis, he is Vatican II from the top of his hair to the bottom of his toenails. He is living, breathing, moving, 100% liberal Vatican II. And therefore, if the Society of St. Pius X makes any agreement with Pope Francis, it means they are agreeing to Vatican II. And therefore, it's now time for Pope Francis to invite them in. In December of last year, 2013, Cardinal Mueller says, the doors are not closed. This is the one who hates the society. The doors are not closed. We open the doors of the society. And so in any case, the signs of this deal are coming through. Now one question I've had for each of the groups I've been going to see, because this has been the case for the last month or so, what do you think will be the reaction of the people if the deal comes through? My opinion is 60-40, 70-30. In other words, 60% chance of this being another lie by Rome, and a 40% chance of the deal actually coming through this year. I personally don't see any great benefit in the deal because the society has already accepted Vatican II. The society has already accepted the new Mass as legitimate. The society is already working with Rome in a de facto situation in many cases, such as marriages in France, Indult Mass in Italy, celebrated by the Society of St. Pius X for several years, and in Madras, India, where I was in January of this year, in Madras, the Society is saying Mass with the written permission of the local bishop of Madras. The new bishop of Madras, Manipur, has given permission to the Society of St. Pius X in writing to say Mass in Novosoro churches in the diocese, which they are doing. And we say Mass in a little school where we had the Mass for many years, and yes, about 70 faithful, and about 9 of our faithful go to the mainstream SSPX Mass in Novosoro churches with the approval. Practical approval, even though the official approval has not yet been given. And this situation is increasing. We were given permission by the local bishop to say a Mass in Germany at the place where the Veil of Veronica is. This is in 2013. And so there's more and more of these permissions being given, with that, and so that we're more and more being united, more and more being pulled together. So there's no need for a full practical statement. However, this practical statement may come in the end of this year. What do you think will be the reaction of the people, particularly those people who said in 2012, there's no deal with Rome. Unless there's a deal, don't bother me. If there's a deal, then I realize there's a problem and I'm going to leave the society. What do you think will be the reaction here of the people you know if this deal does come through and Bishop Fillet goes and kneels in front of the Pope like Bishop Refon did back in 2002 and say we're all happy and things are together and so on? What do you think will be the reaction of the people here? Will there be a massive increase in the resistance? Will people be really upset? What do you think will be the reaction? What do you think?
I think most of the people will go with it.
Go along with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think a lot of people go along with it?
I think most of the people will go against it as well, Father.
Who will go against it?
Because what's the saying to me? Oh, but they haven't done a deal, When they do a deal, then I'm going.
How many of those people will make good on that promise? Do you think that many people will make good on the promise that when they make a deal, I'm going? So who thinks that also many people will leave?
Some will make good.
Yeah, right.
But lots of them think, oh, we've got to go to, lots of them think we go to Rome to convert Rome. I've had people say to me, we've got to get in there to convert them.
Right. I've heard that many times. That we're going to go in with Rome to convert Rome. What I've heard many times is, you know, the fight's going to begin. It's going to get ugly. But we're going to have to go in there. We're going to have to go into the dioceses. We're going to have to go into the parish where the people don't like us. They're going to have an indult Mass. They're going to have a new Mass. And we're going to have to go in and try to convince them to accept the truth. It's going to be the real fight. We don't know what a fight is yet. But when we go inside, it's going to be a real fight. That's the real battle. How many of you heard that? Now, how much of it do you think is true? Right?
A lot of people have a lot of personal trust in Bishop today.
Yeah.
It's like if you say anything against him, well, how dare you you think you know better than him. So they have a lot of personal trust. So
Yeah.
they'll go a lot quicker.
Yeah, you see that the personal trust. I remember in '88. I mean, who of you remember? How many of you were within tradition in '88 when we had the consecrations? Some of you were there in '88. I remember in '88. It was all about preserving the Catholic priesthood, preserving the Catholic faith, making sure that there's going to be future priests. You can't have future Catholic priests without a bishop. Our Catholic bishop is 80 years old. He's going to croak. We need a younger bishops who are Catholic, younger bishops who have the Catholic faith, who are going to ordain Catholic priests to preserve the Catholic priesthood. That was what it was about. It wasn't about, I didn't know anything about Archbishop Lefebvre, other than he was the superior of the Society of St. Vincent. I did not know that he was the advisor of the Pope, that he was a Holy Ghost Father, that he founded all kinds of seminaries. They didn't say, trust Archbishop Lefebvre. You gotta trust the Archbishop. He's got 40 years of missionary experience. He built churches in Africa. He consecrated bishops. He opened seminaries. He did so many things, and you gotta trust his judgment. I heard that argument 0.00 times. I thought of it 0.0 times. Many people had a hard time pronouncing the name. This guy who's going to consecrate the bishops to save the priesthood, his name is Archbishop Lefebvre, something like that. I forget his name. But we've got to save the priesthood. And we need a Catholic bishop. And it wasn't about that Catholic bishop. It was about the priesthood. It was about preservation of the Catholic faith, Catholic Church. And it was not about saving the SSPX. As was stated 25 years later in the Angelus magazine, and stated in Dici.org, and stated in that very deceptive documentary about Archbishop Lefebvre. How many of you saw that documentary? Very deceptive. One of the statements of, I forget which priest it was, he said, if the society still exists today, it's because of Archbishop Lefebvre consecrating those bishops. In other words, he consecrated those bishops to save his little bitty group. And that is a lie. And had he done that, he would be guilty of mortal sin for having done so. When the Jesuits were suppressed, it was a sin on the part of the Pope. The Pope did evil, and he was bribed to do it by Pombal, the Masonic wicked man in Portugal. And for the sake of bribery, and for the sake of political gain, he suppressed the Jesuits. And that Pope is probably burning in hell right now unless he repented. The Jesuits accepted the repression. They accepted it. Some of this, in South America, they said the Jesuits must be gone from the shores of South America. They must be gone from the shores of Brazil by such and such a date. If any remain, they are to be killed on sight. And they left. Their church is abandoned in the Philippines. Their church is abandoned in South America. But were they really abandoned? No. The Augustinians moved in. The Franciscans moved in. The Dominicans moved in. The Recollectos moved in. And they continued preaching the Catholic faith. They continued giving the faith to the souls. And the suppression of the Jesuits did not mean the suppression of the Catholic faith in Brazil. It didn't mean the suppression of the Catholic faith in the Philippines or in any places where the Jesuits were. The faith was continued, and therefore they accepted the wicked command. However, if Archbishop Lefebvre had accepted the suppression of the SSPX, he would have committed a grave sin. Why? Because suppressing the SSPX meant suppressing the Catholic faith in 1975. It was the only order in the entirety of the Catholic Church that was standing for the clear, unadulterated faith without any compromise. And with the suppression of that society meant the suppression of the Catholic faith. Therefore, he could not accept it. And in '88, had he refused to consecrate those bishops, he would not have saved his soul. Because that consecration was necessary for the preservation of the Catholic priesthood, for the true Mass. And that's what happened. We now find ourselves in a kind of similar time right now. We must maintain the faith regardless. for the sake of the church. And we've got to think in terms of the whole church. I personally think that there'll be very few that react. Very, very few that stand up. Because what will happen is this. We made a deal with Rome. Okay, well, we have bishops. We can always back out. And also remember that we don't know what the deal means yet. Let's see what it means. But if it means compromise, I'm out of here. And then we have to remove the prayers after low mass. Well, the prayers after low mass are not essential for salvation. We didn't have them before the 19th century. Pope Leo XIII added them. You know, I mean, St. Ignatius never said the prayers after low mass. Am I better than Ignatius? I mean, they never said the prayers after low mass before 1899. So we don't have to have them. But if they do something serious, I'm out of here. Now you've got to say the epistle and gospel in English on every mass. Well, that's not totally against the faith, but if they change the consecration, I'm out of here. And every single step, if they have altar girls, I'm out of here. Every step, you make a new condition. That's what's been happening the last 40 years. And it's what's going to continue to happen. We either have to stand for the faith or we don't. Now it's true also, as things get worse, God gives a grace to different souls. So that for one person, step A is enough and they stand for the truth. For others, it's step D. And others, it's step F. And others, it's step W. And so God will have each step, some souls come to the truth. And other souls will disappear. But remember, the church of the faithful must become smaller until the victory of Mary. And we just simply maintain the faith and don't play games with it. We can't play games with the faith. And I don't have to go here, but just want to get a report on how things are doing now. Was it April that I was here last year? What month did I come? I think it was April. It's been almost a year. And then remember also what happens. When I came in April, we visited these places. I didn't even know the names, the ranks, the serial numbers, didn't know where to go, etc. It was very difficult because I was never here before. But when going to the places and finally being in the places, I said, okay, Father Giselle and I will try to come here at least one of us once in 3 months. That's all we can do. Because we have to be in the other places. And so it seemed as though you would get Mass maybe once in 3 months. And what happened? Somebody decided they didn't like Father Ortiz's visa. And so he was here 4 months. And Father, instead of coming once, Father Giselle, instead of coming once, he was able to come twice. And so you had Father Giselle coming 2 other times after I came. And you had Father Ortiz here for 4 months. And he's only been gone for a month and a half. But now I'm here again. And Father Giselle is going to come next month. Father Valan is working on his visa to be able to come here. Father Valan is taking very good care of the people in India. And he is going everywhere. And he is very busy. He doesn't talk much, but he doesn't sleep much either. He just goes around and does his work saving souls. And he's always working, always doing something for souls. And he's going to come here also. And so he's finally got his visa, so he'll be able to at least come, maybe stay a month here. Meanwhile, we'll try to cover for his people. India is standing very strong. The Indian people are tough. And also we find the miracle of this event with regard to the Western world. It's easy I had never come to Australia before. But it wasn't so difficult because being like the Western world, you know there's a hall, you know there's people, they set it up, etc. But in the Philippines and in India and Asia, it's not that way. If the people had called us and we were never there, we would not know which jeepney to get on, which rickshaw to jump in, which guy to yell at, which train to jump on, which guy to kick in the head, and so on. Things you all have to do in Asia. And so that we would not have been able to just go to the people in India who would have called us. We wouldn't know where to go and how to do it. But because we were both in India and in Singapore and in Malaysia, they changed the laws, for instance. They changed the laws in India so that we had to be out for 3 months. During that time, I would be out of India for 3 months. During those 3 months, or 2.5 months, during those 2.5 months, I would be in Singapore, Malaysia, come down to New Zealand, because remember New Zealand is part of Asia, for the SSPX, preaching retreats in New Zealand, and then also going to Samoa and the Pacific Islands, And then Father Giselle also was out, had to go around to these different places. And so we learned the areas, particularly of Asia. And so, as a result, when the crisis came, the people called us, and we knew exactly which jeep to catch. We knew exactly how to go around and take care of them. And if we were not stationed there, it would have been impossible. And so it's clear, divine providence. Father Frankie and I were kicked over to Asia. I'm still a priest of Asia, so I still wear my white cassock. My heart is there. I'm still there. I'm stuck over here. I'm materially stuck temporarily in America. I'm stuck in the Western world. But I was a priest of Asia when I was expelled, as was Father Giselle on October the 3rd, October the 4th, 2012. When we were illegitimately expelled from the society, it was a great day of happiness for both of us when we received that worthless paper. When Father Giselle received it in the normal Frankie fashion, we had a big, huge celebration. The guy who gave the expulsion notice, we had a celebration with. And because Father Couture wasn't there, of course, he's always gone. He was the one who should have given us the expulsion notice, but he's always traveling. And so it was another priest that gave us the expulsion notice, handed it to us in our headquarters in Singapore. So we were there to get our expulsion notices, and we were happy. He was happy. He got on the Feast of St. Francis, his patron. And October the 4th, and I received the Feast of St. Teresa, a patroness of the missions. So we were very happy to receive our expulsion notices on those days. And so and then we continued to work. We've been able to continue to work as Society of Priests. We've been able to continue to work as we've always worked. And Father Hugo, for instance, who hopefully will come here sometime, we go around every week, we travel all over the place, but we do exactly what we've always done since ordination. No real change, except the address has changed. We used to go to only 1 or 2 places every single week, continually traveling. Now we're still continually traveling, but just to more places. But other than that, it's essentially the same. We haven't had a change.